welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen. With me today is longtime listener, poet laureate, and tie master Anne-Marie Young. This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today.
And Anne-Marie, I think the accent today is on, well, accents, actually. I mean, I have a New England, Connecticut accent. Our guest is from the South. He has a Southern accent. You're from the UK. You have like the original accent. You have like the best accent of all. You know, so everything, we got an accent on everything going on today.
I know.
Yeah. So
that's the best thing about these meetings is that you can just connect all around the world so easily.
Isn't that wonderful? Yeah. Can you imagine doing this 20 years ago? It would have been impossible. Now with the technology, it's just amazing what we can do.
I know.
Yeah, it's good stuff. So we're joined today by Mel Stubbs, who is a financial expert who particularly focuses on helping people who work in the federal government. And that's very timely these days, considering what's going on here in the US. But as he was pointing out to us before we got started, the principles he talks about pretty much apply to everybody. So we're not going to just talk about federal employees. But Mel, first of all, welcome to the program. And what's the name of the book again? I know it's directly related to federal government employees.
Your FERS, Federal Retirement, the 10 decisions that could make or break your retirement.
There you go. All right.
Probably 8 of the decisions apply to anybody.
Okay. Well, hey, 8 out of 10, that's not bad. I like that.
There you go.
Yeah.
I'm going to struggle today to make sure I keep my Southern accent. I might start veering towards the UK accent. I apologize. It's just a bad habit.
Let's see who could be more British.
That's fun. Yeah, that's the fun of the whole thing.
It's flat. I am trying. It is a compliment. I talk like those around me. I'm sorry.
I have no offense taken.
Well, tell you what, let's get a little bit of background. Maybe that'll help us understand why it is you have that tendency. I mean, tell us, first of all, how you got into this particular field. I mean, this is not something that anybody just says, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to work with federal workers on helping to improve their financial situation.
I did when I was little. I wanted to have a briefcase and I wanted a beeper.
Really?
So that's, for the young people, you don't know what a beeper is, but I wanted a beeper and I wanted a briefcase. And now I guess everybody has a cell phone, and I really don't like a briefcase. It's more of a backpack. I got a leather fancy, but it's a backpack now. But yes, I majored in finance. Had a good number of years in the mortgage business, helping people do mortgages, and then moved to real estate and had a whole bunch of rental houses. And now finally using the finance degree for I think almost 12 years in financial planning, retirement planning, make sure people have money.
But how did you end up tagging on to federal employees? I mean, because that's a very specific niche to go after.
Yeah. So the company I joined, Christie Capital Management, somehow they had, gotten in it. They're in Macon, Georgia, but about an hour or so away from Atlanta. I think there's like 44,000 federal employees in Atlanta. And so, I mean, back before COVID, we would go to the federal locations and do trainings inside of the federal places. We go like VA hospital, Social Security building, bankruptcy court, air traffic control. Like federal is federal, so we'd go kind of wherever. COVID, of course, kind of killed all that. So now there's webinars, YouTube videos, and all that type of stuff, and that's kind of part of my role is to do all that type of stuff.
That's good. I love it. All right, and well, maybe I'm jumping the gun by saying I love it. The real question is, do you love it?
I do. See, I'm creative. I like to come up with stuff. So like all the videos and webinars and stuff, I get to come up with a topic. Once somebody asks you a question 2 or 3 times, it's like, there should be a video about that. So, why does my Medicare premium higher this year than it was last year? Well, let me tell you why. Well, you're the third person to ask that. Let me make a video about why. And so then when you're talking with people, like, hey, as follow up, I'm going to send you this link to this video. Like you watch it, hopefully they'll hear the answer a second time.
Right.
Get to create content and hopefully people like it. And then when you finally get to talk to them, they feel like they know me. They've, I joke, I have dozens of people that watch me. Hopefully it's probably more than that. But, when you meet somebody for the first time, it's not the first time because they've been watching your stuff. So
that's one of the things that's really interesting about doing these kinds of videos and programs like this one and so forth is you reach people you have no idea who you're reaching and you don't really know how you're helping them, but you are. And if you're lucky, you actually get some feedback that tells you how you're helping them. But most of the time, you don't get that feedback.
Right. I mean, you hope it's somebody's being helped by it. But yes, from time to time we can talk to somebody and like they almost finish my sentence before I finish it because they've watched enough videos, and that's nice. I am me, whether I'm in a meeting with somebody on film or whatever. I hosted church yesterday. I had to do the little. I got a joke. I thought the joke was great. I would wish I was a stand-up comedian, but it just didn't work out that way. So I think it's great to put out content, and hopefully it brings the right people to you and it repels the people that aren't probably a good fit.
Yeah, it tends to work that way, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones you're not going to help, they're just not going to listen. So that's fine.
Right. And if somebody's listening and they're going to do everything themselves, but they just want the information, like, awesome, like partake. And those that listen and realize, like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to change my oil in my car. I'm sure I could figure it out. I don't want to. Somebody else will do that for me. So hopefully there's enough people that like don't like what I do. And like, how about you do this for me? Let's do it. I
love it. Yeah, that's exactly the way to make it. That's good stuff. So, all right, give us an idea. Give us a handle on how you approach the whole financial picture from the federal employee perspective.
Yeah. So what's different about federal people rather than just the average person is that they have a pension. Like, so when they retire, they will get a pension, a monthly payment for the rest of their life. They have a choice on, if I die, how much to leave my spouse. Mm-hmm. So where we got like 10 decisions, but only 8 apply for regular folks. Like one of them is that survivor benefit decision. Like, how much do I leave? Right. They get to contribute to, it's called the TSP, the Thrift Savings Plan, but it's a 401k. It's like other people's 401k. So they, have that. And so when they retire, they'll get a guaranteed check from their pension. They'll get a guaranteed check from Social Security. And then they usually have, money. And so we got to, make stuff work, do a plan to show them that they have enough. We got a little thing here, a little squeezy toy, but it says enough. We got to show them that they have enough. And if you're nervous about it, you just keep squeezing, but we got to help people know they have enough. Most of the people we're working with have, 500,000 or more of money. And so we can kind of show them, they have enough. Their problem is going to be taxes. So we have something that says no longer theirs. It's no longer the IRS. So we got to do some planning. So it's no longer theirs. But yeah, so it's helping them realize they have enough and then actually showing them like what the real problem might be. Let's show them that and how we might get help there.
So you kind of answered the next question I was going to ask. I'm going to kind of go out on a limb and guess you're not doing a lot of work with, say, people who are in the military. You're working with people who work more on the bureaucratic side of the government.
Yes. Every once in a while there's people that, I'm a federal employee. I had 4 years of military and we helped them like buy that time back. But yes, generally it is also like, I don't know why, but not postal service. They're federal, but I don't know if they're slightly different. So it's just I don't say the run of the mill because there's tons of them, but I guess not post office necessarily and not military. Just, the people that I've been there 30, 40 years and, the common thread is that nobody in the federal system tells us about our stuff. Like nobody, I don't know how to do this stuff. And of course, now with all the like forced layoffs and that type of stuff, like people are like, I turned in my retirement paperwork. I don't know if anybody got it because I don't know if that department's been like wiped out. And that's a great question. I don't know either, but surely there's enough people maybe, but there are delays. If you turn your retirement paperwork in, you retire, like you're not getting your check next month. There's going to be a delay. And I'm sure under these circumstances, there's going to be lots of delays. And so helping them have other money available to
basically try to figure out how to get through is what it amounts to.
Yes. And then our hope is we help people when they get one of these.
X-Fed, not FedEx. X-Fed.
It looks like FedEx, but it's X-Fed, and typically we want them to like wear that, through the office, kind of brag that they're retiring. But like now everybody kind of got to sit home or they're not going to the office. And it's, there's a marketing plan that just didn't work.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'd say it's good timing what you do because there's certainly a lot of people who are going to be paying attention to that, who are going through that situation right now.
Yeah. The rules are complicated enough that you mess up a few of them and then you're not getting as good a retirement as you could have. Mm-hmm. And that's where, the 10 decisions, there are some that, it's not like a decision just awful, but like there are better choices and helping them think through to where it's not the nuts and bolts of like, how do I determine what my pension is? Because you can get that anywhere, but it's the thinking around the decision of if I pick this, what happens? If I pick this, what happens? Why? there's unintended consequences for some of the decisions. And so thinking through that.
And as you pointed out, I think you said 8 out of 10 apply really to anybody. Why don't we extract those right now so that all listeners who have, some kind of iron in the fire can say, okay, yeah, I identify.
There we go. Okay. So the first one, when to retire. I mean, there's times of like what day for federal, what day of the month. There's certain days are better than the others, but generally just when. A lot of times we got to make sure you got enough. If you don't have enough, it ain't when yet. But helping them realize they have enough. Lots of people have enough, but they are not confident they have enough. So when to retire. In federal world, it's called FEGLI, the Federal Employee Group Life Insurance. But most people at work, they have some sort of life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
If you do and you retire, does it go away?
Mm.
Like, do you need it? If you do need it, you probably want something not attached to your job, because if you ever leave, you might lose it. But do you have the life insurance that you need? There's a decision there. The TSP decision, the 401k decision. If you retire or separate or leave your job, your money can go with you to an IRA, an individual retirement account, if you want it to. There's a handful of reasons why you should do that. The tax planning. Most people are saving money into traditional sources. Like, I'm going to get a tax write-off today. I'm going to put the money in. It's going to grow. When I take the money out, I'm now taxed at my tax bracket.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you remember, you got your paycheck and you said, don't give me my paycheck, put it in there.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully it grew a bunch. And now when they pay you, that's your paycheck. So you got to pay taxes. So do you just wait? Is waiting the best, or could waiting be really bad? Because I don't know if most people know, but the government's got a spending, maybe a debt to income problem. They don't have enough income to pay for everything. And so it's just math. At some point, you'd think taxes got to get worse. If so, it might be better to pay taxes now on some of the money than later. So do that kind of planning. Social Security decision, when to turn it on. There's some, math behind when you might want to turn it on. The long-term care decision. Do you just pay for it yourself? Do you get a long-term care policy? They've got some life insurance policies out there with long-term care features built in. So there's some decision there. For everybody, there's not really a Medicare decision. If you're not fed, you're going to take Medicare because you don't have health care. The work with an advisor. Should you work with somebody? Should you do it yourself? Awesome if you want to. If you don't want to, or that's not your thing, should you work with somebody? And then, of course, we are preaching you should find somebody that kind of their niche is what you have. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're a dentist trying to sell your practice and get out, there's got to be somebody out there. That's what they do. They work with dentists trying to get out of their practice. So find somebody that you are their niche, that what you do is what they need. What you need is what they do. And then the last one, what to do in retirement. Retiring to the couch is probably not that great. I've been listening to other podcasts on health and longevity, and evidently longevity is based on how much muscle mass you have. So we all need to be lifting weights, heavy weights. Going to sit on the couch for the next 20 years is not how you're going to do that. So what do you want to do? Is there stuff you want to do that you think is significant that's maybe not tied to the job? I want to go do something that I really want to do. I don't care how much money I get paid. I just want to go do that. Hopefully we can help people realize they got the money thing figured out. You go be significant however you deem that to be.
And I'm going to go out on a limb once more, and I'm going to say something probably a little controversial. That last point, I think, is probably the most important one in the list. Well, for some people, I think probably the rough stage is just figuring out what you want to do.
Yes.
I mean, if you don't go there, it's kind of like when you were in high school and you didn't really know what you wanted to do. So you said, well, I'll go to college because that's what everybody does. But you didn't know what you're going to major in because you never took the time to explore anything. If you don't take the time to explore, how can you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, hopefully when you're of retirement age, I mean, you know a little bit about what at least you're good at or what you might enjoy. I've got a lady that retired. She makes stained glass. So she's all the time making any kind of stained glass. We got like a company logo stained glass at the office. But I mean, there's, if you want to help children learn how to read, awesome. Start doing it a couple of days a week while you're still working. Like don't retire not having any idea what to do. And then I'll figure it out. That is usually not as successful. And then for a lot of it's kind of a depressing topic, but for everybody at some point there's like, I got less time. I mean, money is limited, but time is also limited.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're encouraging people, you have this money, we've got the plan worked out. Like you have enough, you need to go spend it. Like go take the family to Europe, do some things. Like we don't need to keep hoarding it for like you're in your 90s and you're not spending it. Let's, presumably you're the healthiest you're ever going to be right now. Let's go use it. Now we'll help you make sure you don't do too much. Every once in a while you got somebody that's too much. You need to slow down, lady. You doing too much. But most of the time they've accumulated a bunch because they've been kind of thrifty. And now they retire and they're still, someone might say cheap. Like you need to go spend this money, go do something.
Well, there's a lot of fear associated with it. I think, that's just my take on it. I think about some friends of mine, one in particular I can think about right now, who is like 1 month away from giving notice that she's going to retire, giving notice to the company she works for. And this has been like an ongoing thing for her, preparing for this day for like the last 2 or 3 years, because she gets so worked up about, oh my God, do I have enough to retire on? Without actually giving as much attention. She's getting better at it. She's getting much better at it, but not giving as much attention to what do I want to do with myself when I'm retired? And actually what's making it easier for her to make the decision now to actually go give the notice and say, okay, I'm done, is that she has started to build out her life. She has started to work out what it is she's going to be doing day to day. And she's very active. She's a very active person. So, kudos to her for having done all that. But she is in a sense, she's an example of somebody who, if they, like you were saying, if they don't do that, if they don't actually take the time to figure that out, and if they're waiting until after retirement comes, it's not that it's too late, but it's really hard to figure out what you want to do at that point because you just haven't had the time to explore stuff while you were actively working.
Yeah. There's, I think, studies out there that, the longer you work, the more you've got friends and close people you're working with, you get to use your brain more, like it's healthier to do it. Retire if you want to retire, but if work is where you find fulfillment and you want to keep working, like that's awesome too. Mm-hmm. And we got lots of people that when I'm talking to them, they're like, oh, I don't want my job. I don't like my job. And I'm telling like, you have enough. So if we can come to terms with you don't like your job and you have enough, you're working because you love your job. No, I'm not. Well, yeah, you have enough. So, that's, they just don't know. And so part of our job is letting them know that, we've talked to them, we've gotten their information, we've built a plan, we've gone over it with them. Like they're kind of like when you go to the doctor and they prescribe you something before they've diagnosed you. You're like, hold up. I hadn't told you everything wrong with me yet. Don't give me my answer yet. We got to make sure we have heard them. We got all the information and show them like you have enough. With what you said you want to spend, you have enough. So if you don't like your job, you can go do something else because you don't have to be here.
Anne-Marie, it's a little bit different because of the way your society is structured, but yeah. I imagine there's also some overlap. Tell us where the differences are and where you're seeing the overlap.
Okay, well, I've just been Googling half your terminology. Or I want what? But yeah, we have a lot of like private pensions or pensions through companies. But we also get what we call a state pension, which is we get a certain amount from the government every week. But obviously that threshold of age keeps going up. I think when I started working, the woman had to be 60 to retire, and now it's like 78. So,
wow.
We're
going to head that way.
So obviously we've got company pensions that we pay into, and then they contribute as well. I presume that's relatively similar. I'm kind of in that government kind of frame. So it's a relatively good pension, but pensions have decreased a lot with time. It used to be you get salaried pension, so you'd get what you earned in a year, whereas you don't get that now. You get fractions. So everything seems to be reducing, and I think people are getting worried about retirement, how they're going to cope financially with the cost of everything going up. That pot of money, I think, has reduced. So I presume you guys find that when I went over to the States, I could see it was a lot more expensive than the last time I went.
Yeah, I don't want to brag about my wealth, but I have 2 eggs every day for breakfast. It's very expensive here. But yeah, so I mean, it sounds like your 78 thing might be like our Social Security, where like kind of everybody gets it at a certain age.
Yes.
Do y'all still save money? I mean, where you get the pension, but do you also have accounts where you're saving money for later?
Yeah, if you're fortunate enough to be able to afford that, I would say over here, that's quite a luxury to have savings. Just having money to pay for the bills it's quite a dire situation, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I personally save. My husband isn't working at the moment, so we're living off that savings.
Right. Do the companies match you or anything? Is there any encouragement for you to do that, or it's just all on you?
No, not savings. I think there are some company, maybe more financial sector, they might have saving schemes where if you save, then they'll add to that. But I don't hear of many companies doing that.
See, that's pretty standard over here. I guess that's their encouragement there's probably certain tax breaks to encourage people to save money so that they have their own money later and they don't fall onto the government like Medicaid.
Although not working quite the way they planned.
Yeah.
We have a luxury though in the fact that we have our National Health Service, so a lot of our care is covered, whereas like you guys have to pay for your own medical expenses and stuff. But even if you hit older age and you're not working and you need care and you've got a certain amount, if you've got under a threshold of savings, then your care is paid for you by the government. So we had that luxury.
I guess that's the trade-offs, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess the more that's your own responsibility, some people could do really good, or I guess some people could not do well. Or I guess the government does it for you and kind of everybody gets a certain level. That's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. But I liked what you were saying about like planning for old age. I certainly am building my muscle mass. I'm working with a coach and he's very focused on like working on balance exercises and building your muscles and the longevity of your health and how like working out now will help you in older age. And I think that takes a lot of stress off the systems, doesn't it?
I'm just now learning of it too. And evidently it's a big deal. And it also changes I'm probably now a month of eating, I would say way better. I'm down like 8 pounds.
Amazing.
Congratulations.
But it is different when you see the health or you see the scientific stuff behind it and you're like, okay, so it's not just vanity. I'm trying to lose a little bit of weight, but there's like, if I don't control my insulin levels and they're going to get jacked up all the time, I think they said like 8 out of the top 10 things that will kill you are like controlled by insulin. And if you control that, like, obviously diabetes and that type of stuff, but I think Alzheimer's and there's all kinds of stuff that like, oh, okay. There's a lot more motivation to do better than just like, summer's coming. I need a better beach bod. No, I never found that to be motivating, but postponing the onset of Alzheimer's disease, that's somewhat motivating.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially since there are so many things that you can do toward that. It's not like you're hamstrung. It's not like you're limited in terms of what you can do. I mean, you mentioned Alzheimer's. 2 of the things you can do, they don't even have to be exercise. One of the things you can do in order to basically combat the whole thing is to learn a new language. Apparently that plays a major role in overcoming a lot of the factors that lead to Alzheimer's. Another one, I like to mention this one because it's one of my favorite things. I'm a dancer. Dance is actually a great way to defeat Alzheimer's. Now, that's not why I go dancing. Let's be very honest about it. I go dancing because I enjoy dancing, but nevertheless, it's nice to go, oh, great. Well, hey, good. I'm fighting off the Alzheimer's at the same time.
There you go.
So, I mean, that's just 2 examples, but there are so many different things that we can do that contribute to that muscle mass, that contribute to our health, that contribute to our mindset, that contribute to our belief in our ability to be healthy. Personally, I believe that's one of the most important things we can do. Because we have so many different inputs that we receive from society that basically says, once you reach a certain age, it's all downhill from there. And it's just a question how fast downhill you go. I mean, that's the message we get. We all get it. We've been getting it for generations. And when you're faced with overcoming that, I mean, that's really where I am right now, is dealing with that on a daily basis, because I get exposed to it all the time, is finding ways to say, you know what, I'm not going to buy into that. And it's not easy. It's not easy to do. You have to really work at it, but it's worth it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. In fact, I mentioned before, I have special incentive because I have genetic support on both sides of my family. On both my mom's side and on my dad's side, I have people who live to 108. In fact, one of them is still alive. So I've got a lot of longevity going on there. And with that much longevity, you say to yourself, well, I'm going to be here for a while. I better be healthy. Otherwise, it's not going to be much fun.
And you better have some money.
And have a little money. That's always a good idea. Yeah.
Well, I imagine the worry of people not having enough money in their old age, it declines their health massively because it is so stressful.
Yeah. And I guess most of the people we are working with have money, and that's why they're seeking out our help. So that's, but yes, I imagine it plays a role for sure.
Well, it definitely does. I mean, let's talk about the statistics there. I think it's something like half the people who are in retirement age in this country are basically living month to month. It's not a happy scene. So, it's a challenge for a lot of different people. But even so, I think some of the principles that you talk about and that you deal with your customers, the people I'm talking about here may not be in the same financial ballpark as your customers, but the ideas behind some of them, those ideas can be helpful.
Yeah. I mean, the earlier there's going to be a problem, there's time to fix the problem. Now, of course, when we would go do those like training seminars at the federal locations, would any of the younger people come? No, they would not. Only the people right at retirement, which suited us because that's who our clientele is. So like, it's fine with us that only those come, but like, should the younger people be aware of it? Yes. Are my kids currently aware of or worried about any of these issues? No, they are not. But what are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Do you find there with some of the people that you work with, you've given some examples how they're like, I hate my job, I want to leave, and they've got the money and they're still not doing it. Do you find it's just some people just have that idea of lack in their mindset, and they sometimes just need that permission or somebody to go, you're okay to do this? Yes.
I mean, for a portion of them, yes, they are not confident. Like, math is not their subject. They don't know. I think others are, I guess they're not their self-worth or their value, but like, hey, what do you do? I do my job. And so like, I am labeled by my job. And if I don't do my job anymore, like maybe they're kind of a powerful person and you go home and retire, you're not powerful anymore. And so some of that stuff might be a role of, they don't want to give up some of the status. We've just had a election administrative change. So there's a good number of people that are not happy with who's in charge with the government. So they are more ready to leave. I'm sure there's shakes up, I'm sure everything about their department and everything's all shook up because of that and other reasons, to where some people just aren't happy with the higher ups and want to leave. But yes, we can step in and help people realize they have enough. Some of the other factors of my identity is tied to my job, and I don't have a new identity yet because I hadn't really thought about it yet. So if I retire now, what do I do? Like, if people ask me, what do I do? What do I tell them? We got work to do still on that with some of those people.
Well, that's the question though. What do you tell somebody like that?
So we got a great book that we hand out that it's called Halftime. I think it's by Bob Buford. Halftime is in his, in the book, like that's kind of retirement. Like, the first half of your life, all the work is about attaining success. Hopefully, if you've got enough money, you can retire, you've attained success. And now it's, what do I want to do that's significant? And I mean, hopefully there's things that pop to mind that like, man, if I really did not have to worry about money, I really, I have this charity or this need or this, hopefully something pops up that is significant for you. You know, a lot of times we'll send them that book, have them read and kind of get on that train of thought. I'm more of the money guy and not the touchy-feely emotional, like let's talk you through that, just personality wise. So, you know, we've got some other planners at the office we kind of team up on, and they know how I am. And so give me the person that wants to be overly relational, and together we can conquer the world.
So if you're the money guy, what do you love about being the money guy?
My wife says I like to know I'm right. How do you? No, you're not. If I say no, you're not, that's not true. I'm like, I'm doing exactly what she said. Like, I don't have to know I'm right. You need to know that. So, I mean, I like to like have the math behind it to prove like you really do have it. Like, we've thought of everything and you have enough. And, you know, I like that piece. The problem is some of the people's decisions of like whether they want to work with us or even some of the, you know, do you want to implement what we're talking about? Some of it's, you know, factual like math, but some of it's emotional, and like I need to grow in that area or work with somebody that's already in that area, you know, but I like the math part because I like to know that I'm right and that the math is right and that like for real, this is going to work. I like that piece of it.
It creates a sense of security is what you're saying.
And yes, now it may be, you know, a false sense in some cases, because we also do a lot of work with Christians. We go to kingdom advisors, you know, what's the Bible say about money and some of that stuff. And one of the problems, you know, lots of the people in the Bible that are super rich where it did not work out well, they put all their hope and trust in their own wealth and not in God, and things didn't work out right. So like, yes, I want to know that I'm right, but I also know I got limited, you know, you're still relying on God, not, you know, my own math. But yes, I do like to work out math to make sure things are going to work out.
So lean on the math first and then check with God and make sure it's okay.
Well, I don't think it's probably not the right order. How about you?
Not the right order. Oh, okay.
You know, you do what you can do, but also understand, I mean, like even some of it's easier, like probably back in Bible days when like, hey, there was a drought and like all the rich people weren't rich anymore. Or, you know, there's things that can happen where you're not rich anymore. You know, so do what you can do, but it's also, you know, whatever skills I have to be as good as I am at what I do, I didn't get those skills. You know, they weren't like mine and I did it. You know, I know everything comes from God, but then you do your part. You try to help people, help give them, you know, that sense of somebody that knows better says it's fine. So let me, you know, hopefully make better decisions knowing that they have enough.
It almost sounds to me like you're talking about how not only this is a career path for you and that you're able to help people on this career path, but it's a growth path. I mean, the way you're describing it, it sounds like you go through little growth spurts.
Yeah. I mean, as you get better at what you do, you can help more people. You know, just having the confidence of like, I know these, like some principles, techniques might change, but principles, you know, shouldn't change. And, you know, helping people get out of debt because debt mortgages your future. I mean, that's a biblical principle that like most people probably agree with.
Sure.
And, you know, like we do a lot of tax planning of, you know, most people taxes will be your largest lifetime expense.
Mm-hmm.
Like we know this, we can kind of estimate what you're going to pay in taxes. What if we do some planning earlier? We can show you, you know, this is how much you should save. So like mathematically, let's do this. I like that kind of stuff where most people, that's not even on the horizon of problems. So we got to let them know what their problem might be. And then, hey, don't you want us to help you fix it? That sort of thing.
So do you find that when you lay these things out mathematically for people, that there's a resistance involved, that they're resisting the information?
Not necessarily a resistance of it. I think now a lot of it, Anne Marie, in our world, the word is Roth. I think there was a senator somewhere that they passed some law. Roth is I'm saving money for later. I'm going to go ahead and pay the tax now. And then all the growth from here on out is all going to be tax-free because I already paid the tax. And so that's the opposite of I'm going to take my tax deduction today. I'm going to grow and I'll pay taxes later. People have been so ingrained that I should postpone taxes. like never pay a tax before you have to. Well, I mean, but hold on. It comes down to what tax rate is it? Like we know today's tax rate, we don't know later's. If later's is worse, you should have done it sooner. I think, personal opinion, like taxes are on sale. They're cheaper than they were. I think, Trump lowered taxes. Like they almost have to go up because we do have a math problem with all this stuff. I think even if like Trump saves all this money with the federal government, the math still don't math, right? Like it's still, taxes might go up. I think back, Ronald Reagan was a actor like way back in the 50s, and the top tax bracket was 94%. Bro, as my 5-year-olds would say, bro. And of course, he was in California, and so I think anything over 200,000 was taxed at 94%. So he would do 2 movies a year. He'd quit because he's not doing it. And then, like, where do you think that 6% went? Some people would say Nancy. No, it didn't go to Nancy. It went to California. I mean, like, there was literally no reason to earn $1 more. That's crazy. Like 1970s, the highest rate was 70%. Like, so the fact that our highest rate is 37%, like, it's actually not terrible. And so maybe we should do some of the plan. Like, let's go ahead and move some stuff to Roth now and not wait till later. Most people, they've heard about it enough. They probably know they should be doing it. And this kind of helps. But, there is some work behind looking at your tax return, seeing where you are on the tax bracket, figuring out how much room you have, like figuring out the right amount to do each year. And that's year by year shifted over, kind of paying off the IRS.
And because we don't really know, it's kind of like educated guesswork, really, in some ways, isn't it?
It is. And so, should you move your $1 million over all at one time? Probably not. And that would move you so far up the tax bracket, it wouldn't be worth it. So, I mean, it's kind of little by little, like how much can I do this year? You want to do enough that you make a difference. Because the problem is your traditional account that you're going to pay taxes on later, it still grows. And so, like, hey, great news. Our Roth converted $15,000 last year. Yeah, but your account grew 50,000. Like you really didn't do much. And so you got to do enough to make a difference. But if you do too much, you might overpay in taxes, and you didn't have to. And so it's kind of threading the needle of, just right. Once you get into this, people might say like, yeah, I understand the theory, but you are over my head. I'm out. Like if I do it on my own, I ain't going to do it. So hopefully, letting them know that, hey, we got you. We know how to do it. Let us come alongside. We'll help implement it for you.
Yeah, because I mean, it sounds like it's stressful either way. No matter which way you go, there's stress. And no wonder people don't want to have to deal with it.
Well, I mean, nobody wants to pay a tax before they got to pay a tax.
Right.
But if we can show that, like, if you pay it, I mean, you want to pay it now on the $1 million, you want to pay it 10 years from now on the 2 million, or 20 years from now on the 4 million. Like, it might make sense to pay it now. And so getting over that, and then a lot of like the TSP, the 401k of the federal government, they don't let them, you can't do it. Like, so you have to move the money out in order to do some of that planning. Like, it's just, they're not set up to do it. And so letting them know there's a problem. Hopefully they have enough trust in us that we understand their situation and their federalness and how to work that, enough people are saying yes, that things are good.
Now, you've been doing this for how long?
I think 12 years. Okay. The company's been around 20 years. And I think it's like 19 of us, I think, or so working there. And so we're not like the huge, 1,000 employee, huge place.
Right.
But it's also not like the mom and pop that, if something happens to me, I get hit by a bus, there's 8 other people here that can step in and help you. So you're not stuck out.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking in terms of your personal experience. You got 12 years of having done this. So you've seen a track record happen here. And you can look back at some of the people that you worked with in the earliest years of your career with this company, and you can see what came out of that. So I guess the question that comes to my mind is, well, were you right?
Yeah. So, I mean, we've had, early on in one of the earlier years, we had somebody that was on fire for moving money to Roth, paying off the taxes. So he doesn't have any more tax stuff left. And I mean, he's now over $1 million of Roth tax-free money, all his, no more government involved. He can spend it, no taxes. He can die, leave it to his heirs, no taxes. And I mean, we were paying a lot of taxes every year, but the stock market was good. And so it grew. And so he's like, man, I paid a bunch of taxes, but somehow my account is still bigger. Ain't compounding interest great?
Yeah,
and so like you feel like the other problem in our world is that you look at your 401k statement and you see the balance and you say, ooh, look at my balance. And the truth is it's not your balance.
Because it's untaxed.
The IRS is baked in there. You ain't paid them yet. And so when you look at that, that is the our balance. Some is yours, some is the government's. And so like you're really just paying the government what's already theirs. So you're not like, oh, I just lost $100,000 taxes. No, that 100,000 was never yours. You just divested them. Getting over that is sometimes hard to get people to see because they've seen the statement. They thought it was mine. Yeah, it's not all yours. But
it's one of the things that makes this whole topic such a challenge. One thing that really just kind of sticks out to me, what you do and the way you do it really works well for somebody who has worked a consistent career path. They've worked probably either for the government or for large companies. They've been in the same kind of thing over and over again, very consistent salary year to year. So it becomes much more predictable. For somebody like I've been an entrepreneur for the last 25 years. For me, what you're doing just doesn't work because I'm literally all over the place. Trying to predict what's going to happen next year is insane. But if you're somebody who's working a steady job and you've been doing it for 20, 30, 40 years, that's predictable. You can do something with that. That seems to be where your wheelhouse is.
Yes, I mean, that's what we found. Another benefit of federal people, because they have a pension, they don't need to take from their money as much. They got the bigger pension, they got Social Security. So then their assets can grow more because they aren't having to, spend it all, or they don't have to spend it maybe as fast as other people do because they have the pension. And so then it can, the compounding effect, maybe you can have a quicker start as opposed to somebody not federal, because most not federal people without a pension, they have to start drawing their money sooner and at larger increments.
Well, not just that. Also, there's a predictability that's built into it. Since you have you can actually have a clear or somewhat clear idea of where things are going because it's consistent. That consistency really plays an important role.
Yeah, and most of the people we're talking to, they are retiring in the next 0 to 5 years. And so it's not, that's what's hard, you helping somebody 30 years old. Yeah, it's really hard to predict what you're going to be doing over the next 30 years. I like to put faith in the financial planning software and that stuff. And like, hey, this number is good. The number is not going to be correct. There's so many different factors that could be slightly off. It should be in the ballpark, but like you start getting a younger person and you're trying to guess. Yes, it is guesswork at that point.
Yeah. So the predictability plays a big role in all of this. And when you've got that predictability, that comes from the steadiness. When you're doing steady work, that's going to create that level of predictability. Well, at least hopefully it will. That doesn't even count what happens with career changes. We won't even go there.
Right. I would think most people, probably shouldn't say most, but some people that go work for the government are going there because it's, steady. I've only known one person in 12 years of talking to lots of people. Only one person I know got fired. I don't know exactly what they did because I didn't think you really get fired from the federal government. And I'm not talking about like now where they're like reducing. I'm just talking about like it was just a generic day and she got fired. But so it's a steady job. You go there. You don't have to change jobs. It's I think more conservative, less aggressive people go that direction. And so, they're trying to stay forever because of the pension. It's not worth it for them to switch jobs because they got a pension if they stay.
Well, and what was cueing in my mind is that still really does hold true a lot more in government jobs than it does in corporate jobs. Even in corporate jobs, that pattern is a lot harder to find as a consistent pattern. My dad worked for General Electric for 44 years. That just doesn't happen anymore.
Correct.
That's just always not part of the human experience anymore.
There's a bigger, better deal somewhere else. You got to be on the lookout. You got to keep switching. Yeah.
But it also creates, it adds to the complexity of trying to figure out, what's actually happening? Where is the strength? Where is the weakness? What is the pattern? What were you saying, Anne-Marie?
No, I was just going to ask a question because you kind of touched on the fact that, you don't know for a 30-year-old or a 20-year-old that you don't know what the picture looks like when they come to retire. So how do you make, especially when they're also not that particularly invested in it, because it's life's ahead of them. They think they've got loads of time. How do you make like things like pensions more attractive to that age bracket?
Well, at least here, I think governments, either state government or federal government, are the only ones that have pensions. Most companies have done away with them because they're too expensive. So what they would rather do is, hey, if you contribute 5% of your salary to this savings plan, we will match you. We will give you that 5% for free, something like that. And instead, we're not going to give you a pension. And so you end up with hopefully a larger amount of money, but it's based on what you do. And the company's now out of it. Like, they don't have that pension for somebody that retired and got a pension for 45 years because they lived to 105. Like, that's too expensive for them. So they'd rather just give the money up front, which is why, maybe in your country, you don't have it as much. Here they do, because they were pensions and they're like, time out. This is not working. People are living longer than we planned. They didn't pay enough in and all that type of stuff. So they've turned it around. Now it's more on the employee's responsibility to save. But if you do, they'll match you. And I think there's certain tax breaks and whatever companies get to have that offer to you people.
Okay. That's interesting.
And it's also dependent on the company itself too. If you're dealing with a larger company, a corporation, then that's going to be much more common. If you're dealing with a very small company, it's kind of hit or miss.
We just had our open enrollment for our healthcare at our company today. And I'm thinking, I've got a son that doesn't have the real job yet. He's not 26 yet, but at 26, he gets kicked off the healthcare. He's got to have his own healthcare. Man, you got like 3 years. We at some point got to get like the real job that has benefits. And, I'm sure right now that's not important to him, but it should be. And we will have to convince him of such as he approaches that age.
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yes. What would your later self want? Future self would want me to make a better decision. But
if you were to reverse that, Mel, you were talking, you had somebody to talk to your 25-year-old self. What would you tell your 25-year-old self?
I would have lots of advice. The problem is, I had a client one time. I asked, "Hey, would you want to go back to your 20s or something?" He said, "Only if I can take the wisdom I have now back with me." I'm like, "Oh, okay." Because without that, I can see. Yeah, I don't want to go back without the wisdom.
So that's your chance then. If you have the opportunity to tell your 25-year-old self from who you are right now, here's what I've learned. Listen to me. What would you tell yourself?
So I don't know if y'all have ever read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh yeah.
But some of the, find jobs based on the skills you think you'll learn from the job, not necessarily what the job is. And I've been trying to pass that on to my son. Well, I don't want to work at that place. Yeah, but that place will teach you how to do this, whatever this is. And you need that. And, so maybe you do skip around to 3 or 4 jobs before you find the one that you'll be at forever. But you could learn whatever the skills you think you need. I got that from the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book. But yes, early jobs, probably the amount of money it is, I can get $1 more an hour at this job. Yeah, but the skill you learn here will impact you way more later. I did not necessarily think that way. Well, I did not think that way.
How would you convince your 25-year-old self of that? Because that's a kind of a challenging concept if you don't have the experience to back it up.
Yes. Well, at 25, you were not worried about probably next year, much less 20 years, 30 years, whatever. But skills make a difference. There's a reason that Michael Jordan made the most money, because not many people could do what he does. And so he got paid more. I still remember as a young kid going who pays him that much? How do they have that much money to pay him that? Who owns it? I want to talk to that person. Right. As opposed to some people it's not fair. Somebody has so much money. It's time out. How did you do this? Teach me that. I'm totally fine that you have that much. Teach me what you did. But yeah, at that young, there's no, your future self, you don't much care about. But the compounding interest on money, there's, compounding on skills and whatever. And I'm also telling my kids a lot. So my parents were in education, like a principal and a teacher. I knew I did not want to go in education. Now, maybe doing, YouTube videos is a form of teaching, but I don't want to be in the classroom teaching. But, talking to my kids of, I don't like whatever class I'm in. Who cares? Like, school is to learn how to learn. Like, at some point you're going to learn something that you really want to learn and you're not going to know how to. So like, I know social studies ain't your thing, but you need to figure out how you learn. Is it note cards? Is it listening? Is it reading? But whatever, like, school's about learning how to learn so that when you finally find out what you really want to do, you now know how to learn it. They didn't much care about my advice. I'm sure I wouldn't have cared about it either, but
well, that also raises the question. I mean, if you could go back and you gave yourself the advice, you go back to your 25-year-old self and say, okay, here's what I've learned. Here's the advice I want to give you. Would your 25-year-old self listen?
I'm sure not. I mean, I imagine, like, you should, but I'm sure I wouldn't have. But Anne-Marie, you would have listened, wouldn't you?
Do you know what? I was just literally trying to think, would I have listened? And I was trying to think, how long ago was 25? No, probably not. I just wanted to go out with my friends and have fun.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I was in quite a good job. I was, I was doing okay at 25. And I always think, I kind of look on the positive of every job I've had. There's always been something that I've learned that's taken me into the next one. And like you say, gaining those skills to keep going. And I think if I went to start my own business or something, then I have the skills to do that now, just from going continually getting promoted or moving roles and just gaining that experience. And I think you've got to have that whole learning perspective.
Yeah. If I said, I would have taken my advice so much, that would be prideful. I'm sure I would not have. But I don't know who does. And I mean, I'm sure there's fun things that we did when we weren't doing what we should have been doing that were fun, enjoyable. We made, hopefully there's some silver lining to some of the bad choices we made.
Well, if I am poor and cold and lonely when I'm old age, I just look back at my 20s and smile.
There you go.
That's all I've got. Which it won't be.
That's true. In the end, ultimately, that's what we have, what we've learned, what we picked up, what we remember, what we share with others who might actually even listen. You never know. They might actually listen to the podcast. It's always a possibility.
It would be great. And I'm sure this is why some of the forefathers, whatever, put in there that, like, you can't be president until you're a certain age. Because everybody at 25 should not be president. They don't. No.
But I think it's good for people. I mean, I'm in my 50s and I am sort of thinking, okay, so next year I'm going to increase my pension contributions and then that will increase my employer's pension contributions and like sort of planning for that. And my husband's been planning since he's young because he is somebody who has been sorting his pensions out since he was in his 20s. So it's never too late to stop that planning and get that advice, is it?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, even back to the, as you get older, you need to do certain exercise thing. It is never too late. I mean, you can start at any time. It's just seeing the importance of it and realizing that, maybe that moves up the priority list on some other stuff. And it gives you more options. For some people, like with the whole government shakeup, you need to quit. Some people are retiring happily because they have enough. Mm-hmm. Other people are quite upset because I got to go find another job because I don't have enough. Mm-hmm. And so their options are a little more limited because they didn't have all their ducks in a row. So, I mean, the sooner you can get it, the more options you are giving yourself, probably in any scenario. Better grades gives you probably more colleges you could get in. The better skills you have, the more job opportunities you have. Mm-hmm. But I still think, I don't know if y'all have heard the name Ron Blue, but he's a Christian financial advisor that's done a lot on the Christian space. He talks a lot about, back when I was poor, I didn't have many decisions. You had like beanie weenies or whatever for dinner. And that we made tomato sandwiches for dinner because that's all we could afford. There was no decision. It's quite easy. Like now there's so many decisions that.
That's what makes it challenging. Hey, Mel, how does somebody reach out and find you?
Yeah, ChristyCapital.com is our website. There's a little box, talk to an advisor. You can click there and, kind of put some information and get to us. We got a YouTube channel if you just want to watch some videos. But yeah, ChristyCapital.com.
What do you focus on the YouTube channel?
I mean, retirement stuff from the federal perspective, but, lots of tax planning, lots of, in retirement, your income's probably not going down. It might go up. And if it goes up, here are the problems it has. And today we just learned a lot more information on reverse mortgages. Those are maybe not quite what everybody thinks it is. And so we've got to learn, some more about that. But just, the channel is for federal employees looking for more information on retirement, but then it's, kind of any topic is just from a federal focus.
Mm-hmm. Okay, very good. Anne Marie, I usually come to you at the end of a program to get your take on it because as my co-host, you always have a perspective that's a little different from mine. I'm doing a lot of the question asking and you're thinking kind of from a listener perspective. But you also have the UK perspective. I mean, your social net is quite different from the one here. So I'm really curious to see what you're going to say today. How do you summarize today's conversation?
I think it's, from what I've taken from this conversation is sort of more, we see a lot of life coaches and a lot of people who like to train people in building their skills. And I think that Mel does something very similar with pensions. And for me, my big takeaway from that was, plan for retirement. I like to plan for what you want to do in retirement. And I kind of got it's just like planning for a new stage in your life, not an actual end of your life.
That's good.
Yes.
Yeah, I like that. Finally, too, I also like to do something, Mel, that it kind of occurred to me a few years ago that because we're now in this age where we're putting out this free content, we're talking about the YouTube videos, for instance, that you put out, and you're doing this podcast. I'm sure you do other podcasts as well. And in the course of doing that, we're sharing information with people we've never met, never seen, never will meet, and we don't see how they're using it. We hope that they're using it well. What we've learned over time from doing this program is that we help people without even realizing that we're helping them, and we often help them in big ways, but we never get any credit for it. So I like to take a moment and say, Mel, on behalf of those people you've never met, never seen, never will meet, never will see, who've been taking information from you and putting it to use in a positive way in their lives, on their behalf, thank you for what you're doing, because you're making a difference in the world.
Well, awesome. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah. It's not something that we recognize often enough. That's why I wanted to make sure we recognize it. So thank you for your contribution. That's good.
You as well.
And thank you for joining us on the program and sharing your perspective and sharing some of the ideas. We really appreciate that.
No problem.
And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.